We want to give a quick thank you to these Christian companies: Abundant TV, Hobby Lobby, Grand Canyon University, and Take 12 Recovery Radio. Let's get started with today's show.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We've got another episode, a lot more fun. We're going to have a blast with this and glorify God all in the middle of it, because both are definitely possible. So again, I am Sean Whitson, actor, founder, ActsSocial. I think you know me. Unless you're new to the podcast, we welcome you definitely on our series. We say this in every podcast, and maybe one day we will change the name of it. But we joke around with our guests, and people tell us too that you should probably name your podcast "The Message in the Mess," because God gives stories to each and every one of his people, and each one of those stories is a little bit different and just as impactful from one story to another. And why? Because it connects with different people at their own level, and that's why he allows us to go through it. But it's funny, in the message of the mess of all our podcast series guests that go through, we always say it's kind of comical at the, they tell the story, and at the end you say, is there anything you'd really change about those hard times? And it's so crazy how everyone says, no, it was horrible, but I wouldn't change a thing about it. It's what's formed me. God's allowed me to go through that. So this next guest is one that we've been excited to bring on. He's actually one of the national ministers, our pre-approved, pre-vetted national ministers inside the ActsSocial platform. And he's very active inside there. And his messages will stab you in the heart at days, really convict you of some things that are possibly going on there in your life. And that's why we brought him on. He's awesome with connecting with. Now, if you're watching this and you're not on our audio podcast, you're probably going to look and say, he looks a little familiar. Where have I maybe seen him before? And you've seen him in ActsSocial, but that's his minor job. Jeff has been in some movies and series on Amazon and Netflix, on some names you might remember: DC Legends of Tomorrow, Man in the High Castle, Supernatural, Colony, Ghost Wars. There's a few different ones that he's there on. But, a lot of times we look at actors in their lives and we put them on this pedestal that removes them from being a daily human like the rest of us. And, with today's guest, you're going to find out that's absolutely couldn't be any further from the truth at all. So, Jeff, I want to welcome you to the ActsSocial podcast, sir. And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today, too.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. I'm really, really excited to be here. And when you reached out to me, I just love what you're doing, because with the centering that message of what would Jesus post and how can we glorify God on social media, and your story of how God came to bring you to create this. I'm really excited to be a part of it, first and foremost, because I really appreciate what you're doing.
So awesome, man. Yeah, so awesome. Well, thank you so very much for that. And thank you. You're blessing us by being a part of it there. So, and reaching the members with your stories and stuff, which, speaking of stories, you and I spoke back, I guess, a couple of weeks ago as we were kind of going through a lot of the preliminary stuff. And we were talking and deciding we have a lot more content here of God's stories than we can actually put into one series. So we're going to have others coming up, over the coming weeks as well. So the one that we've chosen today is my impact of you telling me the story is a different perception than you telling it. But this one story we're going into today, man, I really think it's the one that connects with most of our listeners. It's just a hunch, maybe a prompting I have, but I'm really excited to dig into it. So before we quite get there, would you like to start with telling us a little bit about life at maybe a 30,000 foot view, where you grew up at, how your career has progressed and things like that.
Yeah.
But we'll kind of get into what God's taking you into today.
Yeah. So I was born in Langley, British Columbia, and then we moved actually to California right away. And then after that, we came back to Vernon. And I grew up in Vernon, and I had a great childhood. I'm not gonna lie. We were always having fun. No matter what, it was always doing fun things, extreme sports,
awesome,
all that stuff. But I was a very sensitive kid growing up, and I was very in tune spiritually with, spiritual things, right? And didn't really know it at a very young age, but just started to develop over the years where that love and that peace and that joy was tainted and twisted into something that it
Well said.
wasn't. And then that ended up taking me basically to a position where I experienced an incurable autoimmune disease and chronic pain and all that stuff. But prior to that, I was just living fast. I was living a life where, it was about money. It was about getting things as much as I could. It was about, sleeping around with lots of women as I grew up in my teens. And yeah, but the life that I lived, my parents, they always tried to get me to come to church. They always tried to get me, but they couldn't force it on me. Like it was something I had to find, you know what I mean? And yeah, and then basically I started acting. I was working at the oil rigs at the time, and I came back on a 2-week break, and I basically, one of my family members was like, you should check out this acting school, and I was like, I don't know. And so anyway, I went to check it out. The guy was my old boxing coach, and we just hit it off right away. And then I was supposed to go back up north, and I was like, no, like this is what I want to do. And I just dropped everything and I just started pursuing this career, and that took me into working back on the rigs again to save up money for the acting school. And then I ended up moving to Vancouver, and then and this is kind of, from Vernon as a kid, very just innocent and pure. And I had a lot of trauma growing up, where that experience of trusting love and trusting joy, it was never safe, And so that one thing as a child trickled over into an adult. And I always say with people, if a child wants love and attention, they'll scream and cry, or they'll try to get your attention. If an adult wants love and attention that they didn't get, they'll have a chronic pain or autoimmune disease.
Wow, man. Well said.
Yeah. And it's wild, man. I've seen it in a lot of people. I've seen it in myself, and I've been through it. But anyway, coming back to that, brought me to Vancouver. I met a woman. Ended up being in a relationship for 5 years, but this is kind of where the story starts in 2011, And back in 2011, I was diagnosed with an incurable autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis. And I had osteoporosis in my feet, and I had arthritis all up my spine. And basically, the rheumatologist had told me that, your spine is going to fuse and you won't be able to walk or do sports the same again. And so anyway, I got this, I got this, diagnosis, right? But it was interesting because when it happened, I was training for a role in a TV series and trying to get in shape, right? And I had put so much pressure on myself to try to be this image for the industry and be this image for the show, right? And I put so much pressure on myself in perfection. And that started to accumulate over time because I forgot the joy of what it means to really tell stories, the joy of what it meant to do what I first wanted to do in the first place, which was tell stories, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, so I was training in the gym and I did a deadlift, but I was doing it for posture correction. And right after that experience, about 2 days later, I didn't really feel anything. It was about on the 3 days after, my brother came over and I stood up to greet him. And as I stood up, my body just collapsed and I fell to the floor. And I had no idea what was going on. And so we were pretty worried. And so we ended up, taking me to the emergency hospital. They ran a bunch of tests. They didn't find anything, but they were curious about something. And then that's when I got sent to the rheumatologist, and he said, oh yeah, you have ankylosing spondylitis. This is what's going to happen. And when I got that diagnosis, I said, no. And he's
Outright,
he looked at me and he's like, no, this isn't a matter of yes and no.
Yeah.
This is what you have. This is what's going to happen. I was like, yeah, no, that's not gonna
Yeah.
happen. I was like, I am gonna find a cure for this, and when I do, I'm gonna bring it back to you so that you can help other people with it.
Ooh, yes,
And
yes.
his response, and this was the moment I knew that I had to go and search. And his response was, well, even if you do, we probably can't use it because it's not part of our protocol.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I said,
Yeah.
and that's why you won't find a cure because you're not looking for it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I went off, man. And, at that time, I was also a personal trainer, a health coach, and I took care of my body, my mind, and I ate well. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do any. I was like, how does this happen? Like a healthy young guy, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, just the rug right out from underneath.
Yeah.
So I got
How old
diagnosed.
were you then? How old
It
were
would
you
have
then?
been
About?
in 2011, so around 22.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah,
man.
roughly.
Yeah, that's young.
Yeah.
Golly.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, give or take, I think, yeah, 22 or 23.
Yeah.
And
Still.
yeah, man. And so basically got that diagnosis. And then I decided, like, all right, I'm going to try everything I possibly can to try to heal this and fix it. And I'm talking everything, man. Like, I, bro, I got so desperate. I drank food grade hydrogen peroxide 3 times a day on an empty stomach for 70 days.
Uh, wow,
I
man.
was trying to like burn it out of my system, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I tried everything. So give you an idea, I tried ayahuasca 4 times. I tried
Wow.
psilocybin.
Uh-huh.
Ayahuasca, it's like a plant medicine from the Amazon.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
a
Got it. Uh-huh.
hallucinogen that you have this spiritual experience, and did
Uh-huh.
that four
Uh-huh.
times. I did psilocybin, which is like mushrooms. I did
Uh-huh.
oh man, I did ozone injection therapy. I did yoga, meditation, hypnotherapy. I tried the vegan diet, the paleo diet, the pescatarian diet, the no food diet, the air diet, the bone broth diet. you know, and I'd go online and I would search about,
Yeah.
hey, what do people do with ankylosing spondylitis? And they're like, oh yeah, you got to go on a no starch diet. You got to do this. You got to
Uh-huh.
do that. And
Yeah.
and I'll never forget it. I went to this one doctor once, and he said, "Oh yeah, I have that too. Just forget about it and live your life." And I was like,
Huh?
"No, you
Yeah.
don't understand. Like, I got to get rid of this."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so over the years of trying different things, I went to a naturopath. They did a inflammatory food test and they found
Mhm.
90 foods that I was allergic to. And so they
Mhm.
said, okay, if you cut out all these foods, then your inflammatory symptoms will start to go down and this will
Mhm.
help, right? And so I
Uh-huh.
did. I cut out all these foods, I tried everything, and I got to the point where literally I would eat spinach and I would have like curdling pain and up and down my body, just brutal pain. I got skinny.
Yeah.
I got super sick. My
Yeah.
relationship of 5 years was going away. I was losing my
Yeah.
acting career. I was losing my
Yeah.
photography. Like all these different things were just starting to be stripped from me.
Wow.
And so this was about 8 years of living with this. And
Yeah.
as I'm going through this experience, there was something in me that just got to the point where I just said, I'm done. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Keep in mind, I had gone to chiropractors, I had tried everything you could possibly imagine, and
Yeah.
nothing
Surely
worked.
depression has set in.
Yeah.
Surely,
Yeah,
man. Because
exactly, man.
you're encaged in with about every angle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, there was little things along the way. And there was this one moment where, basketball is one of my favorite sports, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was watching people play basketball and I was watching it and I remember just getting so angry because they were able to
Mm.
be free in their body and move freely and I
Yeah.
couldn't, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a moment where I was watching it and I got so pissed off, man, and I just was
Yeah.
like,
I don't blame
I'm
you.
gonna play basketball today. I don't give two craps if my hips break or if I land and something
Yeah.
breaks. I'm playing basketball today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
got on the court and I started playing and it was excruciating. But this was interesting. There was a point where I just got almost angry and annoyed with what was happening to the
Uh-huh.
point where it just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like you go past the pain and it's not there. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And anyway, and so I started playing and jumping around, and there was a point where I was jumping around, there was no pain, and I was like, I don't like how, and then, and then I come back home and I sit in a chair and it's excruciating. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, I'm jumping around like a monkey, and then I come and sit and there's pain. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, there should be pain. If there's pain, it's pain all around. If my spine is broken, it's broken all around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like the first real indicator, like something else is going on here, And and then another book I read was called Healing Back Pain by Dr. Sarno. And that was a good opening to it, but it wasn't the remedy, And so, because his take was that, the pain is due to unconscious repressed rage and da 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 da. And so anyway, I followed that path, and then so fast forward, I had tried everything. I was completely done. I was walking home in an alleyway, and I was hobbling home in the alleyway, and I started to get, iritis. I started to get just the heart palpitations, the most random symptoms. I thought I was, gonna die, right? I was like, I don't know what's happening, man. Like, this is just too much for me to handle. So anyway, I was walking home, hobbling in the alleyway. That day I was in the alleyway and I was alone, and my body just decided to seize up, and I fell on my knees and I just started weeping, and I wanted to ask for help, but I didn't know how, because my pride as a man, I wanted to go, you know what? I can do this on my own. I don't need help,
That's a real thing. Yep.
Yeah. And so I sat in the alleyway and I just cried and just, did it on my own. And then about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so past, 20 minutes, I get to my feet and I hobble home and I walk up into my place, and I knew that day I had enough, and I was going to end my life. Like, I was just done. Like, I was like, I don't want to live this life not being able to be physically active and actually enjoy the sports and the things that I love doing, And so I get to my house, my girlfriend's out, and I walk up the stairs. As I'm walking up the stairs, there's such a weight on my shoulders. And when I get to the top of the stairs, I don't go to one knee. I was brought to one knee, just like my camera.
Special effects in this podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was brought to one knee. And as I was brought to one knee, I looked up and I said, if you're real, like whoever you are, now is the fucking time, And I meant it. And it was the point in my life where either something happens or I'm done. So you decide. You decide if you're real and you want to show up, whoever you are. Like, I believed in God, universe, whatever, but I didn't have a relationship with Jesus, right? And I was like, if you're real, now's the time, man. And so I sat there for about 4 seconds and nothing happened. And there was this moment where I just completely almost just lost hope and surrendered. And the moment that I surrendered and got out of the way, I felt this presence come into the room. And it was the most unbelievable presence of peace and love and power, but joy. I can't even put it into words. If I put it into words, I'm doing it a disservice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I understand.
So,
totally understand.
Yeah.
It's you got a hug from Jesus.
For real, yeah. It was a blanket of absolute love. Yeah. And so, coming back to in my childhood, like, love in that way wasn't safe, because when I experienced that love, I didn't know what to do with it. I was squirming, and I was crying and screaming and laughing. And after all those emotions subsided, I was sitting there and I was leaning over my bed, and there was a still small whisper. And the whisper said, "Look up, pay attention." And I looked up in the corner of the room, and in the corner of the room, literally appeared a ball of fire. And in the middle of the fire was the face of Jesus.
No kidding, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was magnificent, man. It was,
Only
It was,
happened in full surrender. Yeah.
yeah. And he had no expression on his face. It was just perfect peace.
Yeah.
And it was just this, it was like every part of my soul knew that I was home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
perfect peace.
Shivered you to your spine, terrified you, but felt love at the same time.
Yeah. Like the most powerful, gentle presence I've ever, like, it was unbelievable. And so I looked, at Christ in front of me and it was about 4 seconds and then gone.
Yeah.
And here was the interesting thing, because after that experience, the pain wasn't gone, but something was different. Something had shifted, There was hope. For the first time, there was hope of like, okay, like something happened. And then my mind was like, did that just happen? Was I hallucinating? Was I this? Was I this? Right?
You start doubting yourself for a
Oh,
second.
man.
Yeah. Of course. It's, enemy working on you there, probably.
Right? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And then about 2 days later, I ended up getting a Bible. And I remember I
Good
read
steps.
right? Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
step. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read started reading the Old Testament. And my first, honestly, I'll be very honest and candid. My first thought right away was, this guy is an ass. And I hucked it across the room. And I was like,
Old Testament. You went straight into Old Testament stuff.
Yeah.
It's understandable. People do it. Yep.
And, and I said, okay, like, let's give it another chance, So I opened up the Bible again, a random spot. And the first verse said, the power of life and death lies in your tongue, and those who eat its fruit will use it wisely. And so God started to show me spiritually how when you listen to a lie spoken over you, it becomes your identity if that's who you think you are. So, for example, when those rheumatologists and those doctors and everyone diagnosed me, I began to speak like it, fear like it, follow it. I began to keep chasing the whole healing modality to try to fix it when God said, that's not what I spoke over you. Right. And so he was starting to show me how when you're speaking, oh, that's my disease, that's my chronic pain, that's my anxiety, that's my depression, right? You're actually claiming it. You're saying that's me. And nowhere in the Bible did I say you're depressed, you're anxious, you're filled with pain, you're filled with disease, right? And so and then the next verse I read was, I am the truth, the way, and the life. And when I got this verse, my first feeling was, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean, bro? Like, you can't just say you're the truth and then just have no context to this, And again, bro, I got angry and I got annoyed because I, in my life, always wanted to figure it out, I always wanted to figure it out and do it on my own, right?
Yeah.
And so when I got this verse, I started wrestling with God, and I got to this point where in this wrestle, I was crying and laughing and going through all of it, trying to figure it out, right? And then again, the same, and so this was the crazy part, is because during my figuring out, I was getting sick again. And so God, when I stopped trying to understand it,
you lost hope, healing stopped.
The whisper came in again and said, look what you're doing. And I said, what? He said, your need to figure out and understand the truth will keep you from resting in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then my first impulse was like, how did I get there?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I'm gonna figure out how I got there.
Like, how did I get to this spot?
Yeah.
And so yeah, right, that's funny.
Yeah.
And so as I started to read, I was reading about Genesis and how Adam and Eve, they were never meant to know the things that God knew. It was their need to know more than the truth that blinded them from the presence of God and made them hide their nakedness and shame, right? So when I saw that, I was like, wow. I was like, so this kept me from this.
Right.
And you just want my whole heart. And that was the thing that started to kind of open up the door. And then it was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later. Keep in mind, I still had, some pain at this time, right? But it was a little less. And I was in the gym, and I went to the gym and I was doing some core exercise, and I lied down. And then when I lied down, this time there was no pain. And as I lied down, I like tested it, and I was like, what the?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
testing it, looking for it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then there was something in my spirit was like, it's gone. And I just started like laughing and laughing and laughing
Yeah.
and crying
Joy
and laughing
laugh.
and laughing.
Yeah. 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 When
And
you're so full of joy, you just can't stop that.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I was laughing, and then literally that day, my girlfriend was out. I came back to my place. I chilled for the day, and then I went in for the night. I woke up the next morning, sprung out of bed. Keep in mind, my girlfriend of 5 years, she was helping me like put socks on for me at one point because it was so bad, right? I was a young guy. So when I hopped out of bed, she was like, what the heck? Like, I don't understand. Right. And I'm like, Jesus, he healed me.
Yeah.
And she was just like, what? I don't get it. And she was very confused. And, bless her heart, like she was with me in that time where I needed support, and anyway. And so, but this is where it got interesting, because in the Bible, it talks about being unevenly yoked. Right. And so when I got into a relationship, she wasn't necessarily following Christ and I wasn't following Christ. So after this experience, I told her, Christ, like, this is what happened. Jesus is doing this in my life. And I think she was just really not sure what to do with all of it. But her response was, well, I didn't sign up to date a Christian boyfriend.
Oh.
So now God was illuminating to me, you've been one flesh with a person that hasn't been one flesh with me first.
Ooh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, and it's no coincidence. And I don't say this to like point a finger or anything, but her initials were the same initials as the autoimmune disease. Like, I know, right? I couldn't believe that. I was like, wow, that is weird.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there, but I got to think about that.
Yeah, right? Like, I don't know what that means, but that's
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
Oh, my goodness, man.
bless her heart.
That's funny.
She helped me through a lot of it. But
Yeah.
then that's where it started to get interesting, because, we tried to stay together. We tried to make it work. And it got to the point where I heard God very clearly say, you need to let her go so that she can put me first. Yeah. And I was holding on to her because I didn't want to be alone. Right. And I got into the relationship because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't know who I was in Christ. I didn't know what I walked in, the spiritual giftings that I had. I didn't know my heart in Christ first. And I was in a journey where I had to discover that. And this person, bless their heart, they also were probably feeling the same way, and they wanted me, but I was going to Jesus, right? Like I was all for Christ at that time, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, so we ended up breaking off the relationship. And a lot of people, when they come to Jesus, some have very interesting experiences, and it could just be like, oh wow, I felt God's presence. Not me. I everything was stripped. The acting career, the photography, lost the house, lost the dog, 5-year relationship, everything. And I had nothing left. But in that moment, I realized I had everything. And and so what I did is I said, okay, and this is just the type of person I am. I'm like, I'm either all in or I'm not in at all, So I was like, God, like, I'm reading about things, praying in the Bible, and the authority we have in Christ and stuff. And I was like, if this is true, like, show me. I want to see like what it is that you have put in me and who you are. And so that took me to a YouTube video on how to pray in the spirit for healing, right? And I took that time with him, and I went out on the streets and I prayed for homeless people. I prayed for people. Man, I saw miracles. Like, I saw someone standing from a wheelchair. I saw a broken bone mended in front of my face. I saw things that, like, it was insane, man. I'll never forget this one guy we prayed for. And as I'm walking, he has got a bum knee, and I look at him and I was like, yeah, like Holy Spirit, like, when Holy Spirit speaks to you, like, ask him about his knee, ask him about his thing, ask him about his this, right? You start to really hear clearly from God, right? And as I'm walking, he says, ask him about his knee, right? And I'm like, yeah, God want me to ask you about your knee. And he's sitting there, and I'm like, can I pray for it? And he's like, don't effing touch me. And I was like, okay. And I saw on a video where you don't have to touch them. You can literally put your hand over top and God will heal them. And so I don't know. It was at that point in my life where I just had total conviction, and I was just like,
that's awesome.
God's going to heal you right now, man. And I like literally put a shadow of my hand over his knee, and I said, stand up. And God literally healed his knees on the spot. He got up, his mouth was dropped, and he's like, I don't understand. And I was like, yeah, dude, God's real, bro.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there was this fire in me, man. There was this thing
awesome.
that was so alive, and I just wanted to share it with the world, And this was the part of me. Feel this in my spirit. This was the part of me that was sick because I was sitting in a lie rather than standing up in the truth of who I really was. And so I was in a state of dis-ease, and God was calling me to be at ease with who he created me to be. And so when I started to walk in that, that's when I experienced wholeness. When I started to live that, that's when I experienced the fruits of his spirit. When I started to have authority in what he gave me, man, disease, pain, everything gone. Like, it just, there was no room for it because I saw the light of Christ, right?
Wow, man.
Yeah. And then, yeah, man, it was quite something. It was a very hard time too, because of learning, coming to a church community, learning how to trust people, learning, there's all these different things, right? And then one of my, this is where the story gets interesting, man. It's so that, healed, cured, things were good. I was walking with God. My buddy comes and he says, hey man, I'm going to Bali. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, dude, let's go to Bali. I need a vacation. So I ended up going to Indonesia. And I was in Indonesia, and it was a wild experience because I had got this newfound love and joy, right? But I didn't have any leadership with it, and I didn't have the ability to protect it and keep it safe because I was very new at it, right? I was just this guy who was just on fire, and I was like, I just
shotgun approach.
Bam, 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 and it was real. And so during that time in Bali, I had a lot of amazing experience of sharing the gospel with people. But then when COVID hit, I got to this point where over the years, like, there wasn't many followers there. And so in order to be a part of a community, I kind of had to start to go into a lie a little bit, right? And then that lie brought a little more and a little more and a little more. Before you knew it, I was sleeping around. Before you knew it, I was doing this. And I say, like, it's the serpent, right? The serpent doesn't just go. The serpent slowly entangles you, squeezes a little harder, a little harder, a little harder, and before you know it, you can't breathe, And and so I got involved with a lot of breath work and new age stuff and all that stuff, and was started doing psychedelics and stuff, and I lost my way, right? Over the years. This was like over probably about 2.5, 3 years roughly, and I lost my way, and I was kind of in this space where I was living in the sin, but I didn't really realize how far I'd walked away until God.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. And so I was There was this one restaurant that I would go to, and every time there'd be music off to the right. And this particular time, I was feeling lost. I was feeling alone, and I walked to the bathroom and I heard the music, but this time the music was different. And as I'm walking, I literally feel like someone put a magnet on me and they're pulling me in that direction, like full on. And I had to stop and I was like, what the heck is that? And I look over and there's this guy and he's leaning over looking at me and he's going, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know this guy, right?
Yeah.
But there was something that was pulling me in that direction. And I walk over and he's like, hey man. I'm like, hey. He's like, I'm like, what are you guys doing? He's like, oh, we're just reading the gospel and talking about Jesus and worshiping.
In
And
Indonesia. Yeah.
it was in that moment where my spirit felt that same feeling, being home again, right? But I was living in so much shame because I had wandered away from home for so long, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until then. So basically, I ran further. I ran further from God because I didn't think that He would meet me with loving arms. I felt so ashamed. I felt like I was too far gone, that there was no point. Yeah, I was like, you gave me this massive experience, and I ruined it, man. Like I can't come back,
Yeah.
And so I ran, and I kind of like got into this place where I was so angry because I had been deceived, and I was so annoyed about what happened, and I just kind of kept pushing peace away, pushing love away, pushing joy away, and then end up sleeping with more women and all this stuff, right? Just things that accumulated. Anyway, so this led into me going on a hike with some friends. And when we hiked up the volcano, we were just like amped, right? Like it was just in the middle of nowhere, just this beautiful volcano. The scenery was amazing. And when we got to the top of the volcano, we decided like, okay, let's everyone like kind of do a dance, right? And as we're up there doing a dance, I do a dance that I learned to New Zealand called the haka. Yeah, it's like a New Zealand Maori dance for the New Zealand All Blacks. It's like a warrior dance, right?
Oh, gotcha.
So I did this haka, and there was a girl that I was with, and she said, "That was awesome. You should do it naked."
Oh no!
And so I was like, and then I just was like, "Yeah, I should do it naked," And then meanwhile, one of my friends filmed, and and at that time in my life, I was also coaching and helping people with chronic pain and autoimmune disease, and I was wanting to be the example of what it means to be like truly free in all of who we are. And so that was kind of like, oh, I could share this. I'll blur it out. It'll be like a self-expression thing, And anyway, so and like.
No.
Put in context, like, man, my heart was broken. Like I was trying to survive. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so,
I do.
so I did this video. What I didn't know is that the volcano was a holy mountain in their culture. And what I didn't know is that the haka was something that, was obviously very precious to the Maori. And I actually did it wrong. And also, I shared a message of Jesus within that post that I did. And a lot of the Maoris don't like Jesus because of the, colonization and how they stripped away everything from their culture, right? So the haka was the thing that they actually held on to protect so that no one could take from them, right? And so when I shared it with Jesus, man, it just rattled so many people. It went overnight. I posted it overnight. It got about like 80 to 100,000 views. The next like 2 days, it ended up going on 10 different news networks, and I was just like, I don't. I'm like, I don't know how this happened. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And and there was like this there was this moment where I look back on it, and God was calling me to leave Bali, but I don't think I had the strength to leave because I knew I had to face things with my family. I knew I had to, I had to get real with God, right?
Yeah.
And so
And He wanted to structure you with this newfound love and joy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Man, Jeff.
you know, in my life, I had the experience when things were going really well. There was just a moment where they're just going to go bad, so you might as well sabotage that. But it wasn't like I was trying to do it. It was like this is what happens. Things go well and then they go bad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, out of context, I had a lot of, sexual abuse in my early years where
I'm sorry.
when I was an open, joyful child,
Uh-huh.
that's when the experience happened where it was tainted and twisted. So to
Gotcha.
be open and joyful, it felt like literally I was gonna die. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bad's
And
gonna come
so
from being that way. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's
I
understandable,
didn't
man.
yeah, and I didn't have the capacity to discern and separate that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Makes sense.
and so this blew up overnight. It was crazy. And immigration messaged me and they said, hey, there's a bunch of police looking out for you right now, like looking for you. I highly recommend you come into our office because if you don't, this could get really bad for you. And it got to the point where like, they were searching basically. And I was freaking out and I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. I talked to one of my friends in Bali and I was like, man, I like this is what's happening. I'm planning on just going to Jakarta and just like flying out of the country because I just don't know what's going on, right? And he's like, dude, I just face it. Go into the immigration. Like if you run or if you try to get away, it's not gonna go well. And I was like, fair enough. So
Yeah.
took his
Yeah. Yeah.
advice and went off and I end up in the immigration. So I get the immigration as I walk in. Um, a lot of the people in there are watching the video of the thing, right? And I walk through, and they're all like,
No.
they're not happy, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, put it this way, like, I personally, there's nothing wrong with being naked in nature. Like in Canada, like I would actually like that's something I've normally done in my life is being
Yeah.
naked and unashamed in Canada in
Oh no.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
position
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
nature, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't something that was so detrimental, but I get in different countries that, obviously those
Yeah.
things happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, and so yeah, I was in immigration. They brought me into a room, they interviewed me, and I said like, yeah, like I didn't know it was a holy mountain and I didn't. And basically they're telling me about how this is like seen as a pornography law in our country.
Wow.
And so they wanted to give me 2 to 5 years in prison. Yeah. Yeah. And that's when it kind of hit where I was like, that's not like, I don't understand how something so innocent could just be turned into something so horrific,
Yeah.
And anyway, so I saw the report, and this was the crazy thing is when I posted that post, I put a scripture, but the scripture was out of context and it was totally twisted into a scripture that it wasn't.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, right. And there's a verse in the
Yeah.
Bible that says, if you alter the words, like there's death for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll come back to that later. But basically, I put until you become naked and unashamed, you will not be a fearless child of God. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
when I did
Okay. Got
that,
it.
and when I did that, it was quite interesting because I saw it later. But anyway, I was in the immigration and I read the report, 2 to 5 years, and I was sitting in the immigration, and then basically after that, they were like, okay, we want you to share, what happened on a news network. And I was like, and God was right there the whole time with me. And he was just like, no. And I was like, nope. And I just didn't, And they're like,
Yeah.
and they didn't understand because they thought like, here's a tourist just trying to get views, trying to get followers and this and that. Right.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, honestly, that wasn't the case. Like, I just wanted to share that it's okay to express sides of yourself. Right. And so anyway, I was in the immigration and they said, okay, well, we're gonna take you to the spot, and you're gonna do the news network thing. And I was like, I'm not gonna do the news network. And they're like, okay, well, we're gonna take you to this other spot. And they took me to this other spot, I thought, they're probably going to try to get me to do this media thing. They're probably going to try to get me to share the story, all this stuff, because they wanted to blow it up, right? They wanted to make it
Yeah.
a news thingy. And
Yeah.
anyway, and so I get to the spot. They start rifling through my bags. As they're rifling through my bags, I look at the one guy and I'm like, "What's going on? Like, where's the news network or what's happening, right?" And he's like, "Oh, there's no media. You're going to prison." Yeah.
Wow.
So the next thing I know,
Wow. In
yeah,
a foreign country. And
Indonesia, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And keep in mind, it's a detention center, but you don't keep people in a detention center for 7 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I got into this place, the next thing I know, I hear, you're going to prison, right? Like you're going to the cell. And the first thing my nervous, I just lost it. Like I just started just
course.
breaking down.
Yeah.
And man, God was with me the whole time. It was so cool though. As I'm breaking down, I'm just crying and shaking and going through a pretty intense experience. And they were started to get mad because I was crying and they were yelling at me and they're like there was some things manifesting, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. And so there was one individual who he kind of kneeled beside me and he said, like, "Sir, if you don't stop crying, this could get really bad for you. Like they will physically harm you." Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I remember God saying, "You can listen to this voice." And so I stopped. They helped me up. They put me in a room and I was disorientated. There's 4 guys in the room. The next thing I know is one of the guys is putting my head underwater. And I thought, like, yo, they're trying to drown me. They're trying to kill me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
They were washing off my face, but at that time had no idea, right? Like I was just like, I'm
Yeah.
getting my head
Yeah.
shoved underwater right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Wow.
the next thing they said, they started taking me to my cell. As they were taking me to my cell, they're basically grabbed my arms and dragging me because I was just not in a good spot.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I got put in a cell. It was a solitary cell. I couldn't come out of cell for 24 hours. Was locked in there, and when I went in there, thinking, okay, I'm going to be in here for 2 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And so when I got in there, it was just the first night was just it was like hell, man.
I bet,
And
man.
yeah,
I
and
can't
I
even
got in
imagine.
there. Yeah, and I got in there, and this was where it really got interesting. This is where God started to. It makes me so joyful because God put me in a cell because He needed to groom me in His presence alone with no
Yeah.
one else around, And
Yeah.
what I say to people is like, sometimes we get put in these situations and we want to get out of the situation, but actually God put us in the situation so we could learn from the situation, right?
Right.
And so God put me in this cell. And man, like the first 2 days were hell. Like I remember asking the guards, when am I coming out? Soon, maybe soon, maybe soon. That's all they would say. And like I went through the like tons of emotion of just like being pissed. I did the haka again, naked in my
Yeah.
cell. Like I was just chapped, man. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I was just mad at everything.
Yeah.
And anyway, and so I was in the cell, and then I started to calm down. Then I started to, get to a position where I'm like, okay, I'm in this cell, and it was on the second day as I'm sitting in my cell, and I just feel completely lost. Kid you not, someone comes by and slips a Bible through the cell door.
Really?
Yeah, and then
No kidding. In Indonesia, in jail.
Yeah, and walks away. I get the Bible. Whew. Man, I get the Bible, and the first verse I opened to was, "After a little while of suffering, the God of all grace, who has called you to His eternal glory through Christ Jesus, will Himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." And it was that moment where I realized, man, God is going to use this. Like this is going to be something that He's going to use for His glory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just decided, okay, well, I was in Bali. I've done, silent retreats, meditation retreats. I'm going to turn this into like a retreat space. And I'm just going to make it like there's going to be a point where I read my Bible, where I worship, where, you know, I do exercise, and I keep my mind and my body and my spirit like on point. You know what I mean? And when I come out of this cell, like it's going to be awesome. I'm going to have such a great foundation and a relationship with God in that way, you know? And so I did. I turned it into a joy cell, you know? I decided like, if I'm going out, man, I'm gonna make this a joy cell, you know? And you know, it'd be like, you know, 4 days, and you know, I decided like, okay, and I was doing these things, and you know, like it was a full on cell. Like they'd hand your food through the slot, and that was it. And you're in that cell for 24 hours. You had a tiny little mat, and you had a bucket with water, and that's what your cell was, you know? And that was how you showered, and there was a tiny little water canister, and that was it. That was it. And a tiny little cell window at the top with a bit of light coming through. The rest was just dark.
Just darkness.
Yeah. And so I'm in the cell, and and you know, it was like I would feel that joy and that presence of God, and I'd be singing and worshiping, and I was like, bro, I was worshiping like no one's business. Like, I trust in God. Like it was like anger and joy, and also like just you know, just doing everything I could to try to get closer to God, but also in the heart of it, I wanted to get out of that cell. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Probably it's exactly like how Paul felt. Maybe to a T, maybe. We don't know, but probably. Something like that very near, we know.
100%. So anyway, so you know, I'm in the cell, and it fluctuated. It fluctuated from being super joyful, and then realizing like, dude, I could be here for 2 to 5 years. Like this is like, I don't know if I can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'd ask again every day, when am I getting out? They'd say maybe soon, you know? And then basically it got to the point where I just started getting really dark thoughts and dark things, and just being like, I don't think I can stay in here for 2 to 5 years, man. Like I don't think I can just be joyful and stay in here for 2 to 5 years. You know what I mean? And so man, I got to that point. It got really dark, and I had a shoelace on one of my shoes, and I decided I was going to hang myself in the cell. Yeah. And I got to the back of the cell. I tied the shoelace to a nail, and I put it around my neck, and I slid down the wall. And there was a moment where I could have gone through with it. There was a moment where I slid down, and everything just kind of was silent, right? As I'm sliding down with the shoelace around my neck, I just, for some reason, I just was like, man, I can't go out like this. You know what I mean? And it was just, it wasn't because of what happened. It was because I just couldn't bear the thought of being in a cell for 2 to 5 years. Like I couldn't do it, you know? Anyway,
for sure, man.
And so I slid down the wall, and then, I heard God audibly say, like, this is not what's for you, my friend. Like, this is not what's for you. And there was a moment where, you know, I heard the guards outside, and, you know, I could see a vision where like they would find me, and like all these things, right? And then there was a point where I took the shoelace off my neck, and it was just this moment where I said, okay, this is no longer an option, and I'm not going to be a victim of this anymore. Like this is like, something's got to change, right? And so I decided, like, I'm going to turn this cell into like a playground. So what I did next is there was a water canister, and I flooded the cell on the tile with water, and I put soap on the floor, and I started like literally like water sliding on the tile, and I'm like, I just don't care no more. Like this is I'm gonna, like, if I'm going out, man, I'm going out sliding, you know? So I'm sliding.
You made some entertainment for yourself.
Oh, dude, there's
it's probably refreshing.
So there's a people that came out into the yard because they're out of their cells, and they came to my cell and were watching and saw me, and you know, one of the guys, they were laughing, and another guy was like, this guy's gone nuts, you know, like all these things, right? So basically I just turned the cell into a joy cell. But during that time, when I started to focus on the joy and the peace and the love of Christ, there was 6 people that came up to my cell, and I told them about Jesus, and they gave their life to Jesus through the cell door. Yeah,
Wow, that's
it's pretty
awesome.
wild. They gave their life to
Yeah.
Jesus, and then so I had made a declaration. I said, okay, when I get out of the cell, the moment the door opens, I'm gonna say, "Freedom, Las Vegas,"
Uh,
and I get out of the
oh no.
cell,
Yeah.
and as I get out of the cell, like I'm freaked out to say it because I'm like, these guys could probably beat the crap out of me, and I'd be thrown back in my cell, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, I just did it. I was like, "Freedom, Las Vegas," and they got a laugh, and I was like, "Ah, I made you laugh," you know.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking like, okay, great, this is awesome. I'm gonna get
Uh-huh.
flown back to
Uh-huh.
Canada.
Uh-huh.
The Canadian embassy, they've talked to people. Things are getting sorted out, right? Blah 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 blah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And they're walking me, and I think I'm okay. I'm gonna get out of here. They bring me into another cell, and I'm in that cell for 30 days. Yeah, yeah. And
About how long do you know on the first cell roughly?
oh man, I didn't even know. It was one of those
I
things
was gonna
where
think, yeah.
I literally, God was teaching me how to trust in not knowing, but trust on his timing.
Yeah.
So
Again.
this,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The brokenness is where he showed up. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this was a time where I was in this cell. There was a Russian guy in there, didn't speak a lick of English. He smoked like probably a cigarette every 15 minutes, you know?
Oh wow.
And I'm
Yeah.
in this cell, and but the difference with this cell is that I can come out of this cell for 3 hours of the day. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm in this cell, same thing. You get your food, your lunch, your dinner, and then back in your cell for the night, kind of thing, right? And you get to come out and do a workout and talk to people, whatever, right? And so this is where God started to move, because he was showing me like, you've found this newfound joy. You've learned that joy is not dependent of your circumstance. And you're starting to learn more and more that your prison can also be your mind. It doesn't have to be a wall, you know?
Right. Right.
And so in that time, God was like, I need you to share this with other people in here,
Exactly.
because they're in a prison and they do not have to be. And if they
Yeah.
stay in the prison, they will stay there. They will stay in that cell, in that prison, but I haven't called them to stay in a prison. I've called them to be in the kingdom,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
was this one guy from
Wow.
Egypt, and I walked out of my cell and I went into his. He had been there for 7 years. And yeah, so I went into his cell. Man, he had his cell set up. He's got his books. He made a home, right? He made a home.
Yeah.
He's got his books. He's got his little spot. Like, he was working for all this stuff, right? And we started to talk, and we were chatting, and I was like, man, do you believe in God? I was telling him about the gospel, this and that. And I was like, dude, you have to separate yourself from this being the truth. And I'm like, you got to start doing things that are saying, I am leaving this cell. I am leaving this part of my life, and I'm doing something new. And I said, and I was telling him about Jesus, and I said, man, Jesus, he wants to get you out of here. Like, he wants to move you out of this cell. He's got better plans for your life. Anyway, over the time frame, just sharing the gospel with people, going to different cells that people were in. There was guys who came in, overstayed their visa. They were in there for like 3 years. It was like, it's like criminal to keep someone in
Wow.
for 3 years or something like
No
that,
kidding, man. Yeah.
Anyway, so I was just sharing the gospel in the prison, man, and I would go into like the spot where it was like Hindu and Buddhism, and I'd worship and I'd say the name Jesus. Like, I just did not care anymore. I
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I know the truth. The truth has set me free, and I see what is
Yeah.
really happening here. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I was
Wow, man.
bold, man. I was courageous, and even the guards would come up to me, and I'd be like, have you heard of Jesus? He's the only way. There's no other way. And it was like this moment where, like, there was times where God was like, be careful, man. Like,
Yeah.
there's a cost for
Yeah.
sharing the gospel, and like, some people will not take it the way you want,
Right.
And
Right.
anyway,
Exactly.
yeah.
Wow,
And so,
man.
yeah, it was crazy, man. And so basically, yeah, there was so many people that ended up giving their life to the Christ in jail there, and
That's awesome.
I was just enthralled about how God was using this for His
Uh-huh.
glory, and also how He was showing me that He doesn't go to where everything is hunky dory. He goes
Right.
to the lost and the
Uh-huh.
broken, the dark, and He
Yeah.
takes the light and He illuminates it in the dark, right?
That's right. That's right.
And
That's right.
and so yeah, it was quite something.
Golly,
And
man. That is amazing.
yeah, so I'll
That
finish
is
off with this with the story, but basically over the 30 days, there was moments where, there'd be fights with people, like all these different things, right?
uh-huh.
And then I was told, okay, you're going to go home, but in order to go home, you have to get the vaccine. Yeah.
Really? The
Yeah.
vaccine to be able to go home?
Yeah, because at that time it was COVID.
Oh,
So in order to
COVID. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, in
yeah.
order
I
to
forgot. Yeah.
fly, you had to have the vaccine or you had to have something, right? In order to fly
Uh-huh.
out.
Uh-huh.
So they told me that. And I said, you might as well keep me in here for another year because I ain't touching that.
Yeah. Wow,
And
man.
and
Yeah.
I said no. And then by the grace of God, there was one airline called KLM Airlines,
Uh-huh.
and you could have a PCR test and fly out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So
Exactly.
basically they said, okay, you're gonna go home, um, and you just need to pass the PCR. So I got the PCR and ended up passing. But here was the crazy thing: is that they didn't tell me specifically when I was gonna go home,
Uh-huh.
but they said they didn't let me know that I passed until like literally the day of. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I had to wait and this and that. And then the day of, they brought a paper into my cell, and um, they said we need you to sign this paper, but the paper said like you were in this cell, now you're going to another cell, and you're going to this cell. Like it wasn't clear. It was like it
Yeah.
sounded like they were putting me in another cell, and I was signing a paper, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I said to the guy, hey, I'm not going to sign this, but if you reword it, I'll sign it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, and he leaves. And then one of the guys comes up to my cell and he's like, hey, I heard you're going home. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, did they want you to sign a paper? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I just want to let you know, like, the last guy who didn't sign the paper, they kept in here for another year and broke both his collarbones. Yeah. And I was like,
Wow, man. What's
what
up with the
the heck?
paper? Yeah.
I know, right? Like, I was like, why is this so important? Like, if it's just like,
Yeah.
let me go home if I'm going home, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was this moment of learning how to trust, of
Yeah.
learning how to receive from God and trust.
Yeah.
And the guy came back in my cell and he's like, so here's the deal. You're going to sign the paper. You're not going home. And I looked at him and I'm just like, I need you to swear on your life that this is legitimate and this is exactly what it says that I'm going home. And he goes like this. He goes, yeah, 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 yeah. And I was like, no, I need you to look at me and I need you to tell me right now. And he's like, yes, yes, you're going home. Sign it. And
Yeah.
there was this moment where I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
But I had to trust and I signed it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I end up going home. They're taking me to the airport. And as they're taking me to the airport, I'm like, I'm not going home. They're bringing me to another prison for sure. For sure. It's a setup. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Anyway, the moment I get on the plane, uh, I'm like, oh no, the plane's gonna like stop and turn around. Like this is not real. This is
Yeah.
not
It just
happening,
can't
right?
all be real. Yeah.
Oh man, and
Too good to be true. Yeah.
and yeah. So anyway, and then I get into
Ah.
Singapore. They deported me. I get into Singapore, and they basically have a bunch of cops there waiting for me because I can't leave or go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I end up flying to Calgary, and I get to Calgary, and again, man, it was that same experience. And why I reference this so much is because it's everything. Proverbs 3:5-6, man.
Yeah.
Trust in the Lord with all your
Right.
heart and lean not to your own
Right.
understanding. The amount of times that I leaned
Yeah.
on my own understanding because I wanted to control it rather than let go of control and allow God to do what he needs to do, man, I could have saved myself a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
basically got back to Canada, and that was the gist of it. And
Yeah.
so much more to that story, man. But in a nutshell, the things that I learned from that were not everything needs to be shared, uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
uh, and that your prison can become the same as your mind, as the same as a cell, if you allow the darkness to cover
Mhm.
the light of God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well
And
said, man. Well said. Because there's, technically two instances that are so similar: the prison in your mind of being identified in chronic, illness, and
yeah,
then God showing His face, and you being a new Christian, full of joy, full of the Holy Spirit.
yeah,
Go to put one foot in front of the other and follow His lead and make disciples of His,
yep,
and then Satan comes in, basically, the spiritual warfare starts attacking you, and you start going off onto another path, and God allows you to be put in another type of prison, kind of a real one this time. And he's going to let you learn and more from that. Well,
yeah.
Jeff, wow, man, we're up on right at an hour now. So what I want to do is I want to turn this into the things that God has allowed you to go through that has now made it to the point to where, we talked about you and your film industry before,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's not necessarily your passion and identity. It's actually more on the coaching side. So
yeah,
tell
for
us
sure.
just a little bit about how, all these things that God has allowed you to go through that
Yes.
make such a powerful coach in today's world.
Yeah, man, absolutely. For me, it's the experience, like I've experienced a lot, so I can have compassion and understanding for people who have been through a lot in that way. So I think a great coach makes someone who's actually gone through it and not just, speaking about it here and there, but like actually knows like what it means to be in the dark and almost end it all and then
Yeah.
come back to choose life. And so, when I healed from the chronic pain and autoimmune disease, my first question was, well, if I can heal, then others can too. So how can I
Yeah.
help them? Because
Yeah.
man, like my joy for seeing someone find life again and let go of pain and disease and find the ease of being alive and who they truly are. There's
Yeah.
nothing that even comes close. There's no amount of money that even comes close, man. It's like
Sure.
to have your health and wholeness in Christ, like it's unbelievable. So yeah, so I reached out to people when I first started coaching, and I just coached them for free because I just wanted to see like, let's do this, And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up coaching a psychotherapist, and it's just an indicator of like, people can go to therapy for years and years and years, and they stay in a loop, right?
Yeah.
And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, God's like, I'm doing a new thing, and
Yeah.
you are whole. You are complete. You
Yeah.
are the light of the world. You are a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. So I really am passionate about coaching people and helping people discover who God truly created them to be and learn how to walk in that wholeness and in that
Right.
joy that is
Right.
so magnificent that when people see it, they go, "What is that? I want that." And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I love that's what I love doing is love coaching people to
Yeah.
truly be free, not just look free.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly right. And band experience is, as no one will doubt, that's definitely there for the guidance, because there's a big difference in someone that's doing coaching and saying, "Oh, well, you should do this," and they have no recollection of anything the person's gone through in hard times. So
Yes.
that really helps with connecting. Speaking of connecting, to our audience here,
Mhm.
if for those in the audience, listening, watching now, recordings later, doesn't matter
Mhm.
what that connects with for them, for what you've, for what, not only what you've been through, but just similar items that, even run in parallel, which is massive amounts, of maybe they haven't been in jail or maybe they have a chronic illness, but with the parallels of that, it's so similar to drinking problems and all kinds of stuff, opens the door there. What is your prison is basically what we're asking the listeners. And,
Yes.
how
Yes.
can they get in touch with you? What's some of the best resources and stuff
Yeah,
for
for sure. I
touching
recommend
base?
people go to my Instagram. It's called the Jeff Craigen. And that's the best way. I have a lot of different topics and videos on this stuff.
Good.
And then message me directly if that's something that you want to look at. What I centered around is showing people how more knowledge than the truth can blind them from being seen in the truth of who they are.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's what I really center is getting people to experience the peace and the safety and the gentleness of God's love.
Awesome, man. That's so awesome. And so many people are missing just that one key factor that are going through not just life situations and relationships and things like that, not just that, but even if they're doing their therapies and their coachings now, like you said, they get caught in these vicious circles because they're missing a huge key, of what God's got planned outside that little vicious circle.
For sure.
We all get hung in that, actually, man. We all get hung in that little vicious circle in one way or another. So it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah, man. And I'll say one more thing. Like there's something so powerful when we, as followers of Christ, take the time to see people in truth, and we actually see their hearts. Like, give an example. I had a friend who had cancer, and God illuminated to me that she has been the supporter her whole life, but she was using support others to keep from being supported.
Gotcha.
So it goes both ways, where it's like God's the peace that transcends all understanding, but if we try to understand the peace that transcends all understanding, we can't rest in his peace. Right? So I that's why I really love to show people is that what keeps you from being seen in the presence of God.
Yeah, exactly. Let go, let God. Yeah.
Amen, man. Amen.
So true, man. So true. Man, it has been an absolute blast having you on the show today. And we're blessed having you. The audience is blessed having you and sharing, what God has brought you through in those times, man, to make you who you are. And I'll ask you the question, looking back, is there anything you'd change on what God brought you through?
Nothing I would change, but I would realize that obedience can save a lot from pain.
Right. Yeah, I know,
That's
man.
one thing. I didn't have to go through that, but you knock your head
but we
against
all
the
do
wall.
it.
Yeah,
we all
right.
do it.
But
from
no,
one extremity to the next, we all do it.
Yeah. The lessons that I've learned, the things that I've gone through, I mean, I know that, the story that God has given me can help a lot of people.
It's true, man. It's so true. It's so true. Ladies and gentlemen, touch base with Craig on his social. We're going to put some links in there. Go back, rewatch this video. We'll get it also posted up on the ActsSocial platform here very soon. So thank you so very much once again, Jeff, and have a blessed rest of your day, sir. Until next time.
Yeah, you too, man. Pleasure. It was great to be on, and look forward to more.
All right. Sounds good.
All right,
Until
man.
next